One at a time. Let me go back to your lesson. Okay. So tell me one thing it means to grow up. Maturing, and what does that mean?
You're not like we're a child.
Okay.
I don't know how to explain it.
Wait, Ethan, say what you were saying.
Being able to live on your own.
Being able to live on your own. Rebecca?
Being able to handle a certain situations. Let's say if you were younger, you probably couldn't handle properly. Then if you grew up, you could handle better.
Okay. Hang on. Hey, we're having a discussion. Tanner, if you cannot sit back there and shut your mouth, you're going to be sitting up here in the front away from everybody. So you need to stop and you need to listen. We're going to have a discussion and you're going to talk one at a time and you're not going to go off and have your own little conversations. You're going to focus. Okay. Rebecca was saying that it's, say it again for me.
Like you could handle situations different than when you were younger.
Okay. Can somebody come up with an example of how you might handle something differently than you would?
You don't laugh at
Leah?
bills.
Okay.
Tanner, stop.
Bailey?
When you're a kid, you kind of take it for granted. I love it.
You think of what?
When you're a kid, you take it for granted. Like you want to be an adult when you're a kid, and then when you're an adult, you want to do that kid.
Well, yes, this is true. I can tell you. Yes, there are, so part of it is responsibilities, right? We start learning these responsibilities and taking on these responsibilities as we grow and mature. We handle things differently than we might have. I mean, you mentioned bills, but guys, there are things that happen that when we're still in those younger childhood years that we may have handled differently than we do as a teenager when we've had some time to mature, or a different way of looking at things. So I want you also to think about this. This was part of the question. Can you think of some things, any kind of event or something that's happened to you that you think showed or was like a break from being a child to becoming an adult? I mean, I know technically you're not considered full adults yet. Legally, that doesn't happen until you're 18. So there's one thing. Turning 18, we say, okay, you're legally an adult. Do you think that everybody has reached that maturity level at 18?
No, some people still like the mind of a kid.
Okay, that's true. And then there are some people who at 14 or 15 are incredibly mature, okay? But legally, we say 18, you can vote now, you're a legal adult, you can be charged as an adult, but can you think of things that happen as we, through our childhoods that help us take those steps to maturing? It could be, what? Getting punished? Okay, Ethan? Chores, okay. Yeah, getting more and more responsible. I was thinking along the lines of Santa Claus.
Oh,
do you remember that? That's kind of one big step from childhood into, yes, yes. Hey, guys, Jaden said it. Life becomes less magical.
Wait.
I mean, that's how I always felt.
You're telling me that Santa Claus is real?
No, I'm not going to tell you that, Tanner.
Is Santa Claus not real?
Tanner, it's whatever you believe.
I
Okay.
believe it. I love when he crawls on my chimney at nighttime.
Oh, when he watches me when I sleep.
Guys, what about? And these are just silly things, but from being a little kid to being a bigger kid, one of those things, isn't it? Like starting to lose your teeth.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. We start losing our, yeah, but guys, can we stop talking, please? I know you're like Bailey said that's when you're young, but those are those early, I mean, there are steps all along the way as we grow, as we mature. Even as far back as being, how old were you when you lost your first tooth? Does anybody remember? 4 or 5? I think I was 6 or 7 or 8 before I lost a tooth. Okay? So, yes. Hey, McKenna brought up a good point, going through something tragic. Some kids, unfortunately, have gone through tragedy in their lives when they're young. That can have an impact. If you lose.
I feel like foster kids are a lot more grown than
They often.
I guess I'm grown then.
How long, can I ask how long it's been?
I don't wanna talk about, I don't wanna talk about it. Please stop.
That has an impact too. In some ways.
I've been with, 4 years.
One time.
Don't even know my aunt was actually.
Okay. Do you
So
feel,
5
My
years.
son
Okay.
signed college last.
do you feel that you're a little more mature than some of your classmates? Yeah. Do you think part of it has to do with your life situation?
Something unimaginable.
Yeah.
I've been in it since I was 10, so yeah, 5 years.
Yeah. It does have an impact. I would say you're more mature than several of your
We
classmates.
got moved from my aunt's because
She said, what do you want for Christmas?
and she ignored all the caseworkers, so.
But you've been with the same family for 4 years.
We're not always
Is it you and you have siblings that are?
Donovan, Aiden, and someone.
And you're all being adopted? That's awesome.
That's why we're moving to Maryland.
You're moving there?
Maryland.
Oh, you told me that. Okay. Well, congratulations on the adoption. Okay, hey, guys. What are some other things? How many of you had to wear braces, or maybe you still are?
I've been wearing mine since 7th grade. So 6th grade, actually.
Okay. You've been wearing yours since 6th grade?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'm so dirty.
I only had to wear mine for like a year or 2.
I never had braces, I just was born.
You didn't have to wear any? I'm sticking my tongue out at you right now. I'm just kidding. My brother, I grew up, there were 4 girls and 1 boy. All 4 girls, we had to have braces. We had all kinds of work done on our teeth. Our brother has never even had a cavity. The guy is 45 years old. He's never had to have a filling. He didn't have to have braces. He didn't even have to have his wisdom teeth out. We really don't like it. I'm just kidding. Yeah. Okay, so, boys, how many of you have started shaving? Okay.
I mean, I guess.
Oh, yeah, oh, it can grow here.
She's like 5th grade.
Well, see, I asked you guys, I mean, that is, some boys do, they have, I think, let's see, I have the patch, I told you before, I had all the patchwork boys, and I swear they probably had beards in 3rd grade, but, guys, your voice is changing, having to start shaving, those kinds of things. Girls, we have things that start happening to us that show, I mean, these are all steps in maturity, okay?
I think my trend.
Have all of your voices changed, boys?
That's
Okay.
Okay.
Do you remember going through that phase where your voice would crack and then,
It
you
still
know?
does.
It still does? Okay.
I know.
Girls, our voices do change and mature, but not as drastically as the boys do. Yeah. Okay.
We just got a squeaky.
No, we don't get a squeaky. I did, when that happened to me, I did go through, I had laryngitis, and then after that, my voice was deeper. It was weird.
But
But, I went from singing soprano to singing alto. But guys, listen,
You guys want to remember my own?
Tanner,
No.
yeah, Pat.
Alex,
I like to read my friends.
Rebecca, this one, not you,
Sorry.
Bailey, Tanner, come on. So, just to wrap up this conversation, I want you to think about, I mean, McKenna brought up one of the really best points, that sometimes we have events happen in our lives that aren't just our natural part of growing and maturing. Things that we experience, that whether it's a tragedy or something that, like, oh, how old were you guys when, oh, you weren't very, wait, you would have been like first or second grade when the shootings at the elementary, the one elementary school out in Connecticut happened. Do you even remember that?
Nope. No.
Okay.
I don't remember.
All right, when you guys would have been, because my nephew was like 5
Yeah, I'm gonna send you some.
and he's in 8th grade, so you guys would have been like 7. Well, what happened was, there was, no, not yesterday, I'm talking about,
I said there was a shooting right yesterday.
It was me.
oh, there was?
Yeah.
Okay,
At the elementary school, there was like people at the
No,
library
it
trying to give.
That's nothing to joke about, Sarah.
okay, she wasn't joking about it, she was just giving us information, I hadn't heard about that, but, back when you guys would have been like 1st, 2nd grade, probably 2nd grade, there was a school shooting, it was right before Christmas. Tanner, shut up. Just shut up.
You're not, just tell that to
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry, but you just continually talk when I ask you not
Don't be
to.
sorry.
And
Tanner.
it's just,
That's
I'm
right.
trying to explain to you what happened then, because you guys don't, maybe your parents didn't talk to you about it, because it was really difficult to figure out how to handle it with your young children. Because a man went into an elementary school in Connecticut, I believe it was Connecticut, one of those New England states, and shot and killed, I think, about 25
It's terrible.
kindergarten and 1st graders, along with a couple of their teachers and the principal. And it was right before Christmas.
That's terrible.
It was awful.
You shot their principal?
Yeah, it was very sad. And I remember my brother having difficulty trying to figure out what to say to their kindergartner. And he didn't intend to say anything. So my brother at the time, he was a master control operator for a TV station in Indy. And his job was to make sure all the commercials and things get in the right place. But when you have things happen and they break into the news, you know, his job becomes much more difficult. And he was late picking the kids up, and his son just kept saying, "Daddy, what happened? What happened? What's going on?" You know, and he finally had to, you know, explain to him what was going on. And my other sisters that with little kids, they were like, "What do we say?" I have friends, their daughter she's a junior now, she's a year older than you, but she was like in 3rd grade. And what do you say to your children when you think they might hear it on the news? Or they might hear it at school because other parents have talked about it. So how do you handle that? And that's something that changes your outlook on things. Even as adults, there are things that happen in our lives that change us. Yes.
Has our school ever been threatened with like a shooting?
Yes.
Yes. Someone threatened to shoot at my school.
Not at the high school.
There's a
There
lot
were-
yesterday.
Now, we've had some bomb threats over the years. Those were years ago. Here was the weird thing. There'd be a plane crash somewhere, and then the next day we'd have a bomb threat, and it was very bizarre. I mean, I know they had nothing to do with each other, but one of them, there was a plane crash in Roselawn, Indiana, which is about an hour from here. And it had happened the night before. We had a bomb threat. They had to take it seriously because of something that had happened to the mayor. And so the police that would normally, it was the state police that would normally come and check and clear, make sure everything's clear and then everybody could go back in the building. They were involved with covering, taking care of the plane crash. And so the high school students, we ended up over at the elementary school, and then they didn't let the high school kids, they couldn't let them back in the building. They brought buses in and sent them home. Now, anybody who had their keys in their pocket could drive home, but they had to leave, they couldn't come back into their lockers or anything. The staff, we came back in, and then they told us you can stay, but none of us stayed, of course, and we ended up going home early that day. But we've been very fortunate. We have not had anything like that. Hopefully, knock on wood, we won't ever.
I feel like a lot of students, they got suspended for like saying,
Well, we've had, I think over the years, we've had kids say stuff, but we haven't ever actually had now they may have, I think there was a threat at the elementary or middle school a few years ago, and it had to do with a parent. It wasn't a student, it was a
I
parent.
remember that. I
Yeah.
think it was in middle school. My mom.
Yeah, but we've been very fortunate. But guys, to bring it back to what I was talking about, the reason why I asked you about this today and wanted to discuss it is because we're gonna be starting a novel next week, and events that help you grow or force you to grow up a little bit, and how you look at those events, like Rebecca mentioned, our perspective changes as we get older on things. All of this is part of this novel. We're going to be reading about, it's the perspective of a girl. She's like 6 or 7 when the story begins. And she's actually, in some ways, looking back. She's looking back as an adult, telling the story that occurred when she was an elementary child or just starting school. In these first couple of years of school, some events that happened in her community. Okay, and that's a theme of the story. How does she and her older brother change and grow? It's not the only theme in the story, but it's one of them. How do we look at things as a child as opposed to looking at them as an adult? And I don't know if you've thought about it much, but I know without you realizing it, your perspective on things has changed from when you were in first grade. Your interests change. I mean, just think about that your interests often change. And they typically do, okay? So I wanted you to start thinking about those things. I'll probably be giving you a couple more questions like that about different themes in the novel, okay, as we head into it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to switch gears and we're going to do SAT.
Oh my goodness.
What? Are you serious? We only have 10 minutes left.
Yeah, 9.
It's 1 o'clock.
now.
We can start it. I'll just show it to you. You can get it started and we'll finish it tomorrow. Okay?
Please.
No, I am not going to let you guys sit here for 10 minutes without anything to do. No.
Actually, it's only 5 minutes. You have to use the last
No, because you get out at 1:15. So 10 minutes of class and then I have to clean. Okay, so
Let's just do study hall for 10 minutes.
no, because you know what you guys will do? You'll just sit here and chat and not get anything done. Yes, you will. Okay, so guys, tell you what, we'll just do the first page and we're going to do it together. Okay? We're going to do the first page and we're going to do it together. Tanner, you need to open SAT 120. Guys, I'm going to record this part of class.
Okay.
Oh, I make sure I didn't accidentally do it.
I used to have 2 in there.
Okay,